evening, everybody. Joe, thank you so much for putting all of this together, Molecular Future as well. Hi, my name is Lexy Prodromos, and I'm the Director of Operations of the Chicago Blockchain Center. So I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight because I think something that's very unique about this community and just about the large showing at this kind of gathering tonight is that Chicago really has something special in the blockchain space. One of the things that I usually like to ask people about who have been in this industry for a little while is, what was your blockchain aha moment? When was the moment that blockchain technology and all of its potential applications really clicked for you? And those answers have ranged from, well, I've been in the space 5 to 6 years, so I was a believer from the beginning, or I've just gotten interested in the last 5-6 days when Bitcoin hit some crazy all-time highs. So either way, what I've seen consistently in this community in Chicago is a passion for educating ourselves and educating others about what blockchain technology can do for every industry, not just financial services or banking. And so my particular blockchain aha moment happened about 3 years ago when I was a student studying political science pre-law. I initially became fascinated with the idea of smart contracts and their potential applicability in the legal space. Additionally, I was a musician and thought that blockchain technology could be the key to democratizing the music industry, specifically in justly compensating musicians and creators for every play their songs received online. But from there, once I researched blockchain and smart contracts even more, I realized the possibilities spread far beyond just those two narrow use cases. I became fascinated with the potential applicability in the public sector and got connected with the Department of Innovation and Technology at the state of Illinois, where I helped form the Illinois Blockchain Initiative, which has been leading the way nationwide and worldwide in how to treat this space from a regulatory perspective. Shortly after that, I joined Block, which is one of the leading enterprise-grade blockchain software and service providers, also headquartered in Chicago. And so truly what we asked ourselves is, why can't Chicago be a hub for the brightest minds in this space to start their own companies or perhaps even cryptocurrencies? We have a deep history of strong financial institutions, a network of elite universities, and a community that most importantly is hungry for new information and ideas. This was part of the impetus for creating the Chicago Blockchain Center, to serve as both an educational resource, be a creator and curator of informational events, and provide support to the startup community. In addition to the CBC, many other different spaces, similarly fostering education and support to startups, have since emerged. Tonight, you will hear from several of those very leaders who have been integral in elevating Chicago's game in this space. You'll hear from entrepreneurs and their innovative new projects. But first, I have the distinct privilege to introduce our first keynote speaker. Taylor Gerring is the founder of blockchain.wtf, an online publication making it easy for the everyday person to understand and start using blockchain. After graduating with a BSBA in Management of Information Systems, Taylor deployed and managed a variety of systems for large enterprise environments before ultimately joining the blockchain industry in 2012. After working on the Hive cryptocurrency wallet, Taylor previously served on the board of directors of the Ethereum Foundation and is currently an international speaker, educator, and blockchain consultant. Please, Taylor Gerring.
Thank you, Lexi, and thank you, Joe. And thank you to our sponsors. My name is Taylor Gerring. I have been in the blockchain industry for, not quite sure anymore, I've lost count. But I'm going to tell you a little story tonight about my aha moment. It's been about maybe 5 years since I've been in this industry. And I've had a whole lot of opportunities to explore the space and share my love of blockchain with everybody else. And I hope to inspire you to think about what you're passionate about and how that might relate to working together, collaborating, and so forth. I'm going to pull out my note card now. Yeah, so I had a little intro there, a nice little long introduction about my background, going to school, business school. I had a background of computers. I just had a self-interest in tech, and I wanted to explore that, and I was kind of lazy in college, because who isn't? But So I did this business degree, and I found this really, really interesting. And I started working for some large corporations, one of which is here in Chicago. You might have heard of it before, the Chicago Tribune. So I worked for them. I worked for Clear Channel Radio before that, and I just felt myself a little unfulfilled by working with these corporations and building enterprise data bridges, I guess is the best word I could use for them. Like, how do we shift this information all the way around between different organizations? And I started thinking about this, and this wasn't really making me happy, so I thought I'd find a smaller company to work with, something that I could have a greater impact on, right? I didn't feel that my efforts were having a huge impact at Chicago Tribune or otherwise. So I did this. I went to a small company to do web design kind of things, and wouldn't you know it, their biggest client was a financial services company. The irony. The irony, because it wasn't a small company, it was basically a big company with less people. But after that little project, I decided, this still isn't quite fulfilling. I need to find something that's meaningful to me, something that I'm passionate about, because working in building these data bridges was clearly not it. So in this time, this is where I had my aha moment. I was using a website, we'll just say to download some software off the internet. And I really, really liked what this website was doing. I enjoyed the format they put it in. They made it really easy searchable, etc. And I was like, I really want to give these guys $5, $10, some money to support their efforts, because I thought it was a worthwhile endeavor. So I did it. I sent the money via PayPal, I believe. And wouldn't you know, just a few days later, PayPal decided they didn't like this website very much, and they were going to shut off their payment method. So then Google Payments got set up, and we had the same fate with that, got shut down. And as this was all happening, I started wondering, what is going on? And what is this little orange bee logo up in the corner? So I started searching what this Bitcoin thing was. Aha. Bitcoin, decentralization, peer-to-peer. These are all things that I was very interested in as a technologist. And now I found this funny internet money that embraces all those values and makes it possible to pay people anywhere in the world. And it doesn't matter if the government doesn't like what you're doing or if a corporation doesn't like what you're doing. It's practically impossible to shut down. Interesting idea. I needed to learn more about this. So I did. I jumped down the rabbit hole, and here we are 5 or 6 years later, and I haven't climbed my way back out yet, although I've thought about it a few times. So yeah, from that point, I just decided, look, this is really, really interesting. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't understand all the technical aspects behind it, but as a technologist, I can learn this. So I did. And I started creating a few projects around Bitcoin, because that was the only game in town at the time. And I found it fun and interesting, but also challenging in a certain way. I wanted to do more stuff, and I couldn't do all those things with Bitcoin. So we went down a few different routes trying to figure out how to expand what was possible. Was anybody in here into cryptocurrency or Bitcoin 4 or 5 years ago? Any hands? A few people? Okay. So I'm sure those of you remember, and probably anybody that uses wallets today, the wallets are not all that friendly. I'm sorry to any wallet makers in the room, but they're not, they could be made better. Let's put it that way. So I did go down this path of trying to make a better wallet. I joined a team called Hive Wallet. It was a Mac-focused wallet with built-in privacy and so forth. So the founder of Hive Wallet wanted to have Tor baked in and all this kind of stuff, so you don't even have to think about it. It just worked. And this was a compelling idea because blockchain cryptocurrency is not necessarily simple technology, but neither is the internet, right? Sending email involves lots of protocols, so does accessing a web page, and most people don't know or don't care about those things. How can we design a system around blockchain or cryptocurrency that is just as simple as email and so forth? And we've had a few projects try to do that. Coin-a-Pult, started by Eric Voorhees, was one of them. So in this process, I was working with Hive Wallet, trying to make a nice, easy-to-use kind of app. And in this journey, kind of realized, hey, wait a minute. we could kind of integrate some of the operations that we want to do directly into the wallet. And this was really my first foray into decentralized applications. Rather than having a web page and then copying and pasting in an address or scanning a QR code and having it go between applications, we experimented with this idea of, wait a minute, your wallet already knows all of those things. It knows what your receiving address is. If it sees another address, it can just send to it. You don't have to copy and paste and do all this stuff. So I built a little app for Hive Wallet for interacting with Bitstamp, which was one of the most popular exchanges at the time. And you could basically use your Bitstamp application in Hive Wallet and not have to copy and paste addresses and deal with all these very annoying bad habit things that we have with wallets. So that was really, really interesting. But we ran up against a certain kind of limitation. And we started to explore, how can we get past this? How can we work together and figure out how to work, weave our way around limitations in the protocol, or at least come to a consensus and agreement about what changes to the protocol make sense. So at the behest of Wendell Davis, the founder of Hive Wallet, I went to Milan, Italy. And there I met a bunch of interesting people who were very early in the Bitcoin space. And also, so Amir Taki was one of those people, Peter Todd. There were a few others. Another interesting personality there was Cody Wilson of the 3D printed gun fame, right? So there's a lot of interesting minds there discussing very interesting things. And it was here where we tried to experiment with, how do we enable greater functionality on this Bitcoin network without actually changing anything? And we ran up to some limitations, as you might imagine, because Bitcoin is still dealing with this today a little bit. So we left there, and after leaving there, I had stayed in contact with somebody by the name of Mihai Elisier. Mihai Elisier started Bitcoin Magazine, one of the first publications, especially in print there, focusing on cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And one of his writers was a guy by the name of Vitalik Buterin, who now has founded Ethereum. So during this time in Milan, I kept hearing about this thing, this new project, this new blockchain. It might solve all our issues that we're having with Bitcoin and trying to do new advanced different things. After leaving there, I stayed in contact with them, and I heard, hey, Taylor, do you want to help with the Ethereum website? Like, well, surely, I know how to do websites. I can do that. So the website was crashing. I hopped in, and that was my first kind of peek into the Ethereum land. I got an access to the white paper. I read it a couple times, and I said, aha, again, this is the next great thing, at least for me as a technologist. So from there, I went to Switzerland to help set up Ethereum Foundation. I worked in Switzerland for probably a solid 6 months, bounced around to Berlin and London and Amsterdam, where some other offices were established. I worked a little bit on the Go Ethereum client, so taking that technical background and trying to apply it to help further the software. And since then, I've been trying to kind of focus on education initiatives, because I recognize that all this technology is out there, and even if we mature the technology and work around problems with protocols or make the user experience better, we still have to tell people how to use this thing and why it's important. So this is kind of what I do today, is education initiatives. I want to share the good word, so to speak, with other people, which is part of the reason I'm up on this stage. And talk about some of the possibilities of blockchain, because it's changing a little bit. The promises of Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash has changed. We have more blockchains attempting more things, and if any of you have paid any attention at all to ICOs in the space, right? Pretty much everybody has seen that. There's lots of things going on. So now I do blockchain.wtf as a education information resource. Try to make it not for top-level C-level execs, and not for technical people that want to know protocol-level details. But there's this huge segment in the middle of people who want to know how to use it, how to apply it, how is it going to impact them or their business. And I think this is a huge thing that needs to be dealt with, and those people need to be shown ways in which this stuff can be applied effectively. Great. Awesome storyteller. Why is any of this important? Well, it's really important because I really feel like the internet is our collective child, right? It's this really amazing resource we've had for, we'll say, 20, 30 years, realistically. And we need to protect and nurture it, right? We can't just keep taking. We got to give back a little bit. And I think we're seeing this a little bit more today with net neutrality debate becoming more and more of a concern. So what can we do to nurture and protect this thing? What can we do to make sure it's there and available for future generations? Well, part of it comes down to personal responsibility, right? We have to say, we prefer this new, better system, and the old system is not so good. We tried it. It worked for a little while. We liked it. But what do we have now? We have corporate silos of information on the internet. It's not this open web, hyperlinked information everywhere and anywhere. Instead, we have companies building huge silos of data. Why? Because there's value in that data. But here's the problem, right? It's not their data. I mean, we agreed to the terms of service, so it becomes their data. But initially, it's us, our habits, our data. So now we've got all of our data being basically sold off to all these people and put into big silos. And none of it goes from one platform to the other, right? If I buy a bunch of stuff on eBay, that reputation does not carry over to Amazon or anything else in any other way. What an amazing world it would be if somehow we could see that reputation on one platform carries over in some way to another. For me, this feels like the vision of the semantic web, a web interconnected that shares information and is a home for our mind that is separate from this physical space. This is a dream that Sir Tim Berners-Lee shared. He was one of the first pioneers of the web and really pushed forward hyperlinking as an idea. So where does blockchain fit into all of this? Well, first and foremost, I very much believe, technical solutions aside, blockchain is a philosophical, perhaps, solution to working together. Right? How do we collaborate more effectively, more efficiently? Not to take anyone's business away, right? But I think we see the value of being in the room together, collaborating, bouncing ideas off each other. And what I started to discover after some while, that there's a lot of benefits to this idea of a public, permissionless blockchain. Right? I understand corporates have certain needs and desires for private data and so forth, and I don't think that will go away. We have intranets and internets. But having a way to coordinate publicly online in the open, I think is super, super valuable. Why? Well, precisely the lack of ownership by a single institution is why it's so valuable. This idea of decentralization is super, super important. Has anybody in this room had their information hacked, leaked, credit card replaced, anything? I imagine pretty much everybody in this room has had this problem. Equifax, right? Yeah, cool. So we have these corporate silos of data, and we know that data is valuable, so do the hackers. The hackers know the data is valuable, and they're going to go after it, especially when it's a big old database behind a firewall somewhere. They're going to find a way at it. So what's the solution technologically? Well, if we spread the data around and we don't have a single honeypot for them to scoop all the honey in, that's a pretty effective way of doing it. And wait a minute, there's this additional benefit where I get to hold on to my data. I get to control it. I can change who has the permission to see it or what iteration of it. I think this is a super powerful idea as well. It's a little bit like the idea of self-checkout lanes, right? Not exactly, but I like this idea of being able to go and check out and I just kind of go at my own pace. I don't have to deal with another person. There's something interesting about the idea of owning your own data, but it does, again, come down to personal responsibility. You have to manage your private keys, and that's not always the easiest thing due to the aforementioned UX problems that we all deal with. It's user experience for the non-technical. So, where are we now? Well, we have this blockchain idea. We have a way to fund all these projects with ICOs. So, yeah, what's the next step? Well, I think something that we're going to have to start thinking about, really think about hard, is what are all the gray areas of blockchain that we've been promised certain things, but maybe reality doesn't quite meet that, and how do we balance that? So the very simple example I'll give is, smart contracts have been talked up a lot about what they can accomplish, and I 100% agree technologically that it's possible, but it ignores some political realities of being a human being and dealing with other human beings. So, right? I mean, it's not hard to be human. So how do we deal with this, right? What does that mean exactly? Well, if I then own my own identity, my own data, I can own my own identity, right? I don't depend on a government to define a birth certificate, a name, a gender. If you decide that you want to identify as another gender, you can change your own data and say, look, this is who I represent myself as. But that doesn't wholly jive with what the governments have going with issuing IDs and driver's licenses. So how do we balance this? Well, I think this is an area that we're going to have to talk a lot about, is where governments and user-owned data intersects and how we solve these kinds of problems. Of course, it's not just governments. But the general idea is that some of this is going to require effort on our part. We can't just sit around and look at the prices and hope that things will automatically become better. We actually have to take action. So that means using better decentralized solutions. That means using more private solutions, not using the old protocols and old paradigms that have put us into this situation where there are huge corporate silos of data, which result in hackers targeting your information. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about what I see in blockchain, totally aside from values of tokens or anything. That's all super nice. But really, really the goal for all of this, the thing that I saw, was the ability to build a new, better system and enable social revolution. People who don't have banks can have banks. People who had difficulty working together across the internet can now work together across the internet more efficiently. Businesses are exploring blockchain for efficiency use cases. Governments and nonprofits are interested in blockchain for the transparency aspects. I'm interested in it for owning my own data. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. I am really, really happy to be here and hear the talks about what these opportunities can be to work together. I think that trying to compete viciously this early in an industry that is 5, 6, 7, 8 years old is a mistake. It's too soon, it's too early. We have to work together. We have to hold hands, stand shoulder to shoulder, and say, look, things are messed up. We're not happy with this situation. We're going to do something about it. And for me, that doing something about it is blockchain. So, how's my time doing? Okay? Cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that there's a new opportunity here with blockchain to work together, to build new paradigms, to build new ideas. And all it takes is just a little bit of effort on our part. That's it. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joe and Lexy.